Listen to the radio, Harry and Edna's Wireless Show. You heard it from the Three Bells.
What-o, Harry?
And what-o, Edna. And welcome to Harry and Edna on the Wireless, in this very parched and dry little part of the Solent, as we face dear old England. Charles Trent, boom, which kind of fits into this Mediterranean lifestyle we have here on our little island.
Are you sure you mean Mediterranean and not tropical rainstorm island at the moment?
It probably could be. We've had a little storm or two have hit us.
Well, I'd say more than little, rather strong, gusty, ferocious storms.
And my shed, as given to me by good old my man Geoffrey.
What-o, Jeff?
Is all bent and mangled.
Yeah, the wind said we'll get rid of this and tried to, a bit like Dorothy in Wizard of Oz, like where the house went up in a tornado. It was trying to take the shed.
Yeah, it sure doesn't seem like we're in Kansas anymore.
No, I don't think we are, Harry.
So we got to do some emergency repairs where we tried, but I didn't have the right parts. And we've got another storm, according to the forecast, hitting us tomorrow.
I know. When I went to work yesterday, there was a tree across the road, so that was rather exciting. It's not every day that happens.
Think of the firewood, but no.
I needed to get to work, and it was rather bigger than the car, so I thought you'd be upset if I mangled the car with a tree on top. Well, we've had that happen to us before, haven't we? We've had a tree through the windscreen.
Yes. When we very, very first came to the island... we had a tree fall through the car.
A branch, like a big bough of a tree, fell on the car and
that was the end of the car.
Impaled itself in the windscreen. So you come out next morning and you think, okay, right, that's the car done then.
Something about living on the Solent.
There is, isn't there? It's rather windy and lots of trees, but I think it keeps life interesting.
It does now. We need to say what we've got on the show. We have our good chum Viv the Spiv, joining us. Now, Viv was on a previous show, and he's always good value, is Viv, and we love having him on the show. Now, this is an interview we recorded quite a long while ago on the telephone, and he's talking about the Chap ball, which sadly is no more.
Oh, those were the days, eh?
They were the days, and he's describing all the fun and games that gets on at what goes on, should I say, or did go on at the Chap ball. Something we keep saying we should try and reinvent on this island, but we talk a lot, but don't do an awful lot of action, do we?
There's not a lot of time to do these things, is there, sadly?
What-ho?
So, a rose room, Harry, do you think that's a room in which you dance and kind of keep fit and, limber up?
No. You grow your roses in it.
Do you?
I haven't got the faintest idea.
Oh, it sounded like you knew then. I was almost impressed with your knowledge.
Yeah, maybe it'd be like sort of having orchids growing in the room.
Maybe. We looked at a house once where I wanted a house, talking about things growing in rooms.
Oh, I forgot about this.
Yeah, we were, when we first thought we were coming over to the island, I fell in love with this house that we saw on Pewter, and it had a vine. I think it was one of these lovely ideas of a Victorian veranda, which I've always quite fancied on the side of my house, but somebody had obviously planted a vine in there, hadn't they? And then it had got a bit...
That's right, it's like a Victorian conservatory, wasn't it? With lots of plants inside it.
And I think somebody thought that it was a grand idea to grow, grapevine in it, but I think it got rather over.
I don't know if that was a vine, if it was sort of more Jack and the Beanstalk sort of thing.
You reckon?
It was huge, and I remember saying to you, that thing has severely undermined the house. The foundations are going to... some of the Victorians weren't great at their foundations at the best of times. And
what a shame, because it was such a beautiful Victorian-looking veranda. But hey-ho, wasn't to be. You said no before we even looked at it.
Well, if I remember, you then decided we were going to move to Cornwall, which is completely different part of the country.
Well,
and I still
have these whimsies
to go back home sometime and go to River and Sea.
That's not back home.
Well, near enough. I'm from the East Riding, and that's on the East Riding. It is River and Sea, if you do want to look it up. If you're interested, anybody in the world, get on the old computer. And if you look at I think it's the TripAdvisor review, it says something like the B078 is the best feature of River and Sea because it leads out of River and Sea.
Oh, that's a bit harsh.
It is. It did mention the fish and chip shop, which I think is about the only other thing it's got.
And the other highlight to Withering Sea.
It's a seaside resort, which unfortunately, like many of our seaside resorts, have seen better days. But there's always something special.
There's that little bit of old charm about them still, isn't there?
Well, I think it was either Rivering Sea or Bridlington, one of the two, was the nearest coast you could go to from Hull. Hull is the city I grew up in, you see. So if you want to go to the coast, that's where you went. But it's seen better days now. It's not a Scarborough.
It's not, no.
Or a Whitby.
Or a Blackpool.
Well, that's the other side.
I know, I'm just
and
comparing seaside towns now.
Yes, but
my geography's not great.
But they're Lancastrians.
Oh, are they? Don't mention them.
Yes.
That's the enemy. In the
it
old days.
was about 1,000 years
exactly,
ago. Yeah.
Rekindling the War of the Roses now.
which
yes.
does go back in the past.
It does.
A bit like the chap ball, that's going back in the past, isn't it?
Let's bring us back round to dancing again. The Rose Room, that's what started us off.
Oh, yes, you thought it was a place to dance, and you were thinking of the chap ball, which is... well, Viv does go through and explains it far more, because he's next on the phone after we listened to a bit of the Temperance 7. But these were fantastic days. Do you know, I saw Mr. B. Reimer the very first time ever. Was one of the chap balls. Yeah. And there used to be Vintage News. They've been on the show. They used to do a YouTube channel. And used to do all these, but I don't think they do it anymore. No,
but they all gave highlights. I'm sure that's all still available on YouTube to have a look at the chap ball and its heady days of when it existed.
I hope so, because we're on it too, aren't we? Because Vintage News featured Harry Edna when we were broadcasting from
a studio,
from the studios,
a different studio
in Milton Keynes, a long time ago. I think that place has been demolished now.
That's right.
Well, it might not be demolished. It was put up for sale. It was an art centre.
But it was in a beautiful old rectory, wasn't it? Yeah. It was a really old-fashioned rectory. Beautiful old house.
And as many of these things, they run out of money, and that was the end of the building.
They sell the land because it's worth far more money, sadly.
It is. So Viv is going to tell us all about the chap ball and what it's like to be a chap and all the sort of stuff he gets up to. Talks about his comparing, because that's where we used to run our own vintage nights, a bit like the chap ball, but not quite on the same scale. And he used to be our compare. He was our original compare.
In the good old days of the old
good old days.
Compares.
Yes. I'm just remembering the days when we used to have to...
You've got all glassy-eyed and you've gone off into the distance.
Do you remember we used to have to vet his jokes after it got so...
I know.
Extreme.
It wasn't extreme. They were just a bit close to the mark, weren't they? So we had to...
God bless Viv.
Yes.
Anyways, what's the Temperance 7 song we're going to sing?
I wondered if you were going to make me say this one. This is Voo-doo-doo-doo-doo-dee, oh blues.
What ho?
You've done a lot of comparing.
Any excuse to get up there and tell a few jokes and see all my mates, and that was up at the Bloomsbury Ballroom, which is uptown, and it's a wonderful Art Deco place, lovely big ballroom, and they've got a nice little cocktail lounge at the back. Yeah. Hosting the cocktail lounge, I was the MC compare. But every year they have a different face, otherwise it's not him again, Yeah. But it was wonderful. There were some good acts there. There was, we had a surprise guest, Mr. B, the gentleman rhymer, I'm sure you know. Then there was a flea circus. Oh, right. And then there was a band called Albert Ball and his Flying Aces. There was a tightrope walker in there, believe it or not. They had the rope going right across the ballroom. His name was Quabana Lindsay. Yeah. And he's a tightrope walker. Wow. Atters, one of the chap brigade, he was MC in it, and he had quite an outrageous outfit on. It was like a psychedelic catsuit with a top hat. He looked quite good. And then my lovely Laura, she was up there doing her Nancy Cigarette Girl, where she goes around with her tray and sells cigarettes to people and stuff, Yeah, so we cover the health warnings up so they don't do you no harm, do they?
Yeah, well, that's it. In those days, they weren't bothered about that kind of thing, were they? It's very fashionable. What they
worried about was it stunting your growth.
That's it, yeah. I'm sure there was adverts that said it was actually good for your health.
Good for your throat, apparently.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So can you tell our overseas listeners, because we have lots of people listening in from the States and from Australia, could you describe to us a chap?
The Chap magazine is... excuse me, it's a magazine for modern gentlemen, but with old-fashioned sort of values, what sort of tweed to wear, what sort of cravat to wear, cufflinks, it's all like men's stuff, you know.
Yeah.
A bit of cricket in there, a bit of rugby. And it's a bi-monthly magazine run by a chap called Gustav Temple. And it's available in W.H. Smith's as well as Waterstones, them sort of shops.
Yep.
It was they call it the Grand Anarcho-Dandiest Ball. And it's absolutely wonderful. You get a mix of all sorts of people there, some right Herberts and some real straight people. And it all works, you know.
Yeah.
What ho?
And do people dress up?
Oh, yeah, people dress up in anything from, like, Edwardian clobbers to modern-day stuff from a lot of 40s styles there, 30s and 40s styles for the men and women. Last year we had a Dalek there.
Oh, excellent.
He didn't come this year, though. I don't think he can find anywhere, because they can't get up the steps.
No, well, that's the big problem.
They had it in Bloomsbury, because they knew they could keep Daleks there. I've always said if Doctor Who gets worried, just go upstairs.
Well, yeah.
You know, but and it's really wonderful. And it started off about 8, went to about 2. There weren't any punch-ups.
Yeah.
It was just a wonderful evening, and I recommend it to everyone. And
Oh, brill. So do you get lots of people dressed up in their +4s and their top hat and tails? Do people go to that extreme?
Yeah, you see a lot of that. The old tweed, +4s. In fact, I was out the front having a fag with a couple of the lads, and these chaps walked along, and they was all dressed up in this Edwardian gear, you know.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, you look smart." And they said, "Well, we ain't got changed yet."
Oh, really?
And then they went in and changed into some even more outrageous clobber, like these, like velvet knickerbockers and all that, you know, and the canes and the monocles and the top hats and flash waistcoats. They're wonderful, really. And you get so many people there that just want to come and have a look, you know, and stuff. I was talking to a French girl there who'd come from a French magazine to take some photos, and bloke there, and he'd heard about the chat ball. He come over from Germany to take some photos and talk to people, and
so people,
it's just a wonderful evening. I'd recommend it to anyone, you know.
Yeah, and you feel quite at home, quite comfortable going dressed in whatever style takes your fancy, I suppose.
Yeah, anything goes up there. I mean, you know, there was a couple of Spivs there and all.
Yeah.
I soon got rid of them because I can't have them on my patch.
Well, no, that's it. No, there is only one Viv the Spiv.
There is only one Viv the Spiv. There's a lot of imitators, but no one's got it right yet, have they?
No, absolutely not.
You know,
sell all your wares.
Present me goods on stage in front of all them hundreds of people, can't I?
Well, that's it, yeah.
It's all top quality, you know. I ain't nicked none of it.
No. I've known you for your quality merchandise. I've never yet parted with any money to buy any.
Well, yeah, I'm working on you.
Yeah.
I've got a free fitting with the knickers, you know that.
Yeah, I know.
So I wouldn't be saying that if I was up there now with Harry, because he'd probably give me a right hander, wouldn't he?
Well,
he's all right on the end of the phone, and all.
You are, and he's busy tapping away on the keyboard, talking to all our people that are on Facebook and tweeting us. So he's busy occupied.
Oh, smashing!
Thank you so much for joining us, Viv.
What ho?
That was a chap called Stefan Grappelli and his mate. And I can't pronounce his
The
mate.
Django Reinhardt.
How do you know these words?
Because that's somebody your father used to like, the Django Reinhardt.
How do you know this, Eva? I don't remember this bit.
My memory's not brilliant, but I do remember the odd thing now and again.
Well, do you remember, listening back to that interview,
yeah,
he was talking about a Dalek being at the chap ball.
I know.
Where do you think they got that idea from?
Or where do you think we got our idea from?
Well, I'll tell you the reason.
Yes.
Well, we had ours, and we did a night with Professor Elemental, who's sort of chap hop, which is like hip hop, but in a chap style, in a very posh style, and on the old ukulele, and he's also a bit steampunk-esque. So it wasn't quite our usual vintage night, but we had him on, and he was very expensive because he's a very well-known and popular person here in the UK, and we couldn't afford a compare, and we didn't know what to do, but we just happened to know someone who has a Dalek.
As you do,
and we used his Dalek to be the compare. It was compare Dalek.
But it was worth explaining, isn't it, that it's a Dalek that you can actually get inside as well.
It's the true pucker thing. It's a sort of a 1970s Dalek with sink plunger, the lot, mate.
I know. And an inability to see where you're going.
Yeah. There's actually a small clip of it on YouTube.
It was good fun, though, because there's an art to getting in and out of a Dalek. The top doesn't come off, does it? You have to actually go in from underneath.
That's it. You had to sort of tilt it up, but not too much so the little knobbly bits didn't get crushed.
Yes, and you didn't crush the plunger. But it was...
beware of the sink plunger.
It was very amusing. And we just, as you do through life, you kind of get to know people. And we always like to... We pride ourselves on knowing, like... the out of the ordinary, people with a little bit of quirkiness about them. And anyway, we got to know this chap, and and his mother's garage was a very elderly mother's garage, so we always wondered whether
she knew it was in there,
or whether one day she'd go in there and
find a Dalek,
frighten the life out of herself. But so anyway, we happened upon this Dalek in the garage and sort of thought, oh, I'm sure one day we'll have a need for that, and lo and behold, we did, didn't we?
We do. I was actually thinking we don't get asked any more of those things anymore since we moved. Oh, hello, is that
hello,
you?
That's tuneful.
We don't get asked for any. We used to, this was when we were more in the scene now, and you've moved on to go and work in Heritage, and I'm just.
And we float on a little island now.
And we're floating on a little island. But I do remember once, I think we talked before, been asked to find, was it 4 or 5 drag queens that could cook?
Yeah. Because
for a show about Fanny Craddock, who was a TV celebrity chef in the 1970s here in the UK.
She wasn't a drag act, was she? The thing was that it was a twist on Fanny Craddock in a kind of artistic, fun, festival type way. And you're right, you and I used to get asked to find some weird and wonderful acts and people. And do you know, that was always the question, do you know where I will find?
Anyway, that was what we did then.
That's our heady life of rock and roll that we used to lead.
We don't do that anymore.
No.
Instead, we listen to Billy. Billy who? Billy Tennant, is it?
Tennant.
I don't know, is it?
Look
at the script, dear.
No, I'm just trying to... I was looking at it from a distance. I have to bring it a bit closer because I haven't got my glasses on. Tennant.
There we go, Tennant.
Yeah, you started something,
It
Harry.
wasn't David Tennant.
No.
And his Doctor Who days. This is Billy, and you started something.
What ho?
No, I know I've said it before, and I will say it again and again and again and again. We love our music from the 30s, 40s and 50s, and if you really want to know what people were listening to in the 1940s, that was the kind of music. Yes, Big Bang Swing and Glenn Miller and alike are obviously very popular, but they were really late 40s. They didn't, particularly in the UK, that it wasn't a big thing. If you went to a dance or, in the wartime era, it was probably like waltzes and foxtrots you were doing. Anyway, that completes your musical education. This is Harry and Edna on the wireless, and we've been listening to Viv the Spiv. He joined us on the phone today. Now, if he's been on before, you always get good value with Viv, and if you want to listen to the previous show, or if at any of those shows, just simply go to harryandedna.co.uk and click on the tab that says wireless. In fact, and you can catch all our previous shows, are all there. There's even podcasts. Now, podcasts are the speech-only version, but they're downloadable. So if you just want to hear young Edna and I nattering away, that's the very thing you need there.
What ho?
Now that was Stuff Smith and his Onyx Club Boys, and prior to that, we were playing Billy Tennant, and you started something, and I was saying how that was really the sort of music that you would have heard in the 1940s if you ever look at the old films. It's foxtrots, waltzes like that, and they didn't really play the up swingy stuff until later in the 40s because it wasn't that popular. So what do? I play some Stuff Smith just to sort of crank it up a bit. So
that's obviously when dancing got a little more American, would you say?
Yes, that was just it. You've got to remember we weren't quite so communicative.
We weren't throwing people around like you see.
Well, that was a very American thing, you
dances.
see, and of course you're talking pre-television, really, and you'd see the films, but the films were like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers and all that kind of thing. He's not exactly known for his Lindy Hop.
No, or he didn't really throw Ginger Rogers around or through his legs or over his shoulders, did he? As such. Yeah,
and I was thinking, who's that guy? Norman Rubberlegs, somebody or other. But he was a cabaret act, actually, hidden in his dancing. Anyway, I'm going off on a completely different tangent.
You're wandering off.
Well, on a tangent, because you've been doing some dancing.
Well, I
very modern stuff. We don't do this modern stuff. Or is it very ancient stuff because it's all yoga-y?
Well, no, we were getting round to... we were talking about dancing and how we used to go dancing. We don't do that anymore. And that was a really good way of us keeping fit. And you kind of forget that it obviously gets the heart going and it gets the blood pumping around your body, and it's a really enjoyable way of keeping yourself fit. Some people like going to the gym and pumping iron and, beating themselves up because they've not pulled a particular weight or whatever floats your boat. But certainly for you and I, it was
You sound like
dancing.
You're slowly digging yourself in a hole.
No,
here.
I'm
Me
trying to lift myself back out again. So
no one noticed.
No one noticed. Thanks, Harry. So you and I used to dance a lot, and obviously not able to anymore. So I thought, how do I keep myself fit? So I've joined Harry and I up to the local sports centre, which is quite radical for you and I. And you were talking about music. I've been doing a little bit of yoga, which is not really music at all, so that's why I was struggling to link the two together. It's not really... No, they ting a bowl.
It was a very tenuous link.
It was a very tenuous link, and you threw it out to me, and I was trying to struggle to scratch around to tie the two together. But still, it's very, very relaxing and a really lovely, gentle way of keeping fit.
It's not really working, is it?
No, but I've signed Harry up to some classes, so you're just trying to get me back for that, I think.
And the fact that I went to said swimming pool today and found I didn't have said swimming attire. So I had a very, very expensive shower. That's about all I could do. and then came home again.
At least you walked there. Well, you didn't walk there, I dropped you off, but you walked back, so there was a little bit of exercise still. You left middle son to go swimming.
Yeah, he's doing well at that. He's doing well.
He's really enjoying it.
He signed himself up for, was it the Scouts, for something like 20 lengths, and I was thinking, you're never going to manage that. And actually, he's not far off it. So
no,
I shall take my hat off.
He's practising and he's rehearsing and going there, and he's going to do well.
Right. As we've completely...
talked ourselves around in a complete non-circle. Yeah.
Who have we got coming up next?
Well, I think we should play a little bit of Percival Mackay. See? Percival Mackay and his band on her doorstep last night.
What ho?
Now, we've got to fill a few more minutes because we have 57 minutes exactly of Harry and Edna on the wireless, and we have to fill it. And we said, what should we chat about? And you said lounge pants, and I didn't have the faintest idea what lounge pants were. And how does that relate to the vintage scene? And whatever they are, I'm pretty certain I don't own any.
No, what it led on from was us talking about me signing you up to this yoga class, and you saying, oh, yes, what am I going to wear? What do you wear to yoga? And I said, well, you could wear tracksuit bottoms. Yes. Tracksuit
bottoms.
Exactly, and then we realised you don't own a pair of tracksuit bottoms.
You'd be getting me to wear pantaloons de denim, which into the young people of today, they call them jeans.
Do they?
I just call them pantaloons de denim because I don't wear those either.
No, and your +4s won't be comfortable to do your yoga
in. They'd be too hot.
Yeah, well, you need to be swinging your legs around.
Outdoor clothing +4s.
So I said, don't they call them lounge pants now instead of tracksuit bottoms? And it just reminded me, going back to our beloved 40s, that I'm sure you used to get lounge suits. Isn't that what they used to call the siren suit? Didn't they, right, picking my historic brain, wasn't it the siren suit? And obviously Churchill made that well known
and popular, which is almost like it, for people who don't know, it's almost like a forerunner of the onesie, wasn't it? And the idea was you wore it when you were like in the air raid shelter, you could quickly like zip this thing on and
over your clothes, and it gave you another layer of warmth. And then I'm sure the fashion industry picked it up and sort of were trying to encourage women to wear these siren suits, but they renamed them lounge suits. And it meant that you could come home and you could sort of get changed out of your clothing, because you would have tried to keep that as clean and as tidy as possible, and you could slip into this lounge suit, which was like a female version of a siren suit, which today we know them as onesies. So I'd come around full circle in my thinking there, thinking maybe we should get you a onesie to do your yoga in.
Our youngest son has a giraffe onesie. He's obsessed with giraffes, and his grandma bought him a giraffe onesie for Christmas.
Complete with hood, with giraffe face on it.
And everything. And we can't get that thing off the boy.
No.
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 So I don't think he's going to let me wear the giraffe onesie in this class of I can't even say the word. It begins with Y.
Yoga. Look, Harry, we'll get you flexible before the year is out. I just got visions of you in your siren suit doing your yoga.
But I have this reputation, in fact we both did, but you sort of like veered off. Certainly when we were known probably about 15 years ago being really hardcore in the vintage scene. You know, really, living the ilk, the period. Yoga, I'm pretty certain. Well, I don't know. I suppose it's been around for years.
Yeah, of course it has.
You don't see Will Hay in any of his films doing yoga.
No, but it's a very old, ancient tradition. So I think we'll get you in your... I must take a photo of you in your siren suit doing your yoga.
I don't have a siren suit.
That'll be worth $1 million.
Could I do it in top hat, white tie and tails, maybe?
What ho?
That's Carol Gibbons and his boyfriends. Top hat, white tie and tails. You see, you think we put those shows together. Did you see how perfectly that conversation about siren suits led into that? It was amazing.
Yeah, but we have since had a conversation about doing yoga with your white tie, top hat and tails won't be suitable either.
That's true. In fact, you may wonder what we actually get up to when we do the show. Now, if you're listening to the Viv, when we're doing the telephone interview, you'd have heard tap, 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 and that was actually me on the computer answering the various messages on Facebook and Instagram and alike, because you can get hold of us that way. And you've been cooking a lasagna.
I know. I keep nipping out. And I said to Harry, I've got to go and blanch my lasagna sheets. And you said, what did you say?
Well, I haven't got the faintest idea what blanching a lasagna is.
You misheard me. You thought I was not blanching them. I was boiling them, not boiling them. Something else, I don't know.
Lasagna sounds very foreign to me anyway.
It's lovely. So it's been cooking away and I've been nipping out and stirring it and seasoning it and making it yummy.
We are destroying our image, because there are some folks out there who probably still think we're hardcore people living in the past, and they probably still think we're eating Walton pie and rabbit stew and alike, and we're not trying this foreign stuff, and you're doing all this Italian stuff.
I know, it's got garlic in it as well. That's how foreign could you get? It just reminded me of your mum, bless her, because that's too foreign, too spicy and icky. Garlic.
It is. Is it ready yet?
It's getting close, so I'm going to dash off in a minute and get my blanching lasagna sheets out of the boiling water.
I shall let you to blanch, and to do that I shall say toodle pip.
And a tinkety tonk from me.
What ho?